Heads up, because you are in the Hoodwood. I'm the Black Bandit KJ Green, welcoming you to another edition of Sports from the Hoodwood for November 3rd, 2022. Coming up this week, the Phils, can they take the title? World Series 2022 is in full effect. We'll take a look at the games, past and present, and if the Astros can dig their way out of the hole. The NBA says they're trying to rein in their spending. Yeah, right. Easier said than done. We'll take a deep dive on what the NBA owners are trying to plan. An NHL team at a college rink? Doesn't make sense. But I'll investigate and bring you the details. We'll have NFL Week 9, Phat, Head Slap, the Hoodwood Hot 5 returns along with Stuffy. He's back from his fishing trip. Go figure. And is Kyrie Irving really trying to get canceled? We'll look at that in the final word from the Hood. All that and a whole lot. It's called Sports from the Hoodwood. Put on your crash helmet, buckle your seatbelt, get ready. Let's go.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest, unfiltered commentary and insight on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's Hoodwood's hometown hero, KJ Green.
Greetings from the Hoodwood, where the Hoodwood Hound has returned from his fishing trip. Maybe he was with Aaron Judge. He says he was with Judge. I fixed the microphone. I had somebody tell me that part of it coming apart was distracting, so I fixed that and try to fix a whole bunch of other things in the mix. I'm your man, KJ Green, welcoming you back to another exciting edition of Sports from the Hoodwood. It's November, and we're still in the middle of the World Series. That's the only thing that I don't like about the expanded playoffs is that we're running into November, and we haven't all the way got through the World Series. Phillies have a 2-1 lead with the fourth game being played as the show is being taped. So we might have a 2-2 split going to a pivotal fifth game on Thursday, or the Phillies might have pushed out to a 3-1 lead and one of the biggest playoff runs and upsets possibly in history. I mean, people may have said the 2004 Cardinals with 84 wins got hot at the right time, or the 87 Twins who only won 85 games got hot at the right time. The Phillies had to defeat three teams that were on paper, or at least in the standings, better than them. And I can hear all the purists, the 11th best team's going to win the World Series. What it's going to do? Deal with it. That's what I say. The Phillies, after firing Joe Girardi on June 1st, Rob Thompson made that team hungry, lean, laid back, and they just keep coming. This is a team that most people wrote off, including myself, when the Phillies made the playoffs. And I'm like, Phillies made the playoffs? Oh, that's nice. They'll have a nice cameo appearance. I said so. 3 weeks ago, I said so on these very airwaves that the Cardinals were going to shoo them out of the playoffs. The Phillies beat the Cardinals, the Braves, and the Padres. All three of those teams, I dare say, was better on paper, or at least standings-wise, than the Phillies were. And now they have the Astros, the class of the American League, who hadn't broke a sweat in the American League playoffs, having the first round bye out of the wild card round, and beating the Mariners and the Yankees in 3 and 4 games respectively. But then game 1 comes up, and I like Justin Verlander. I really do. I think he's a great pitcher. He's going to have a bust in Cooperstown someday. But when it comes to the World Series, he just cannot close the deal. I mean, I read a stat earlier that Madison Bumgarner, if he gave up home runs to his next 34 batters, he would still have a lower ERA than Justin Verlander does now. That's sad. A big money pitcher like Justin Verlander not being as big time in the biggest of games, on the biggest of stages. Clayton Kershaw had that moniker dog him for quite a while until he got on a nice run in the 2020 playoffs. And a lot of people say that World Series title should have an asterisk because of the shortened season, that the Dodgers would have found a way to mess that up. But Clayton Kershaw has his ring. Justin Verlander does have a ring from the, albeit pockmarked and much maligned 2017 squad of Astros that won the title. But this was a chance for Verlander to right the wrong. This was a chance for Verlander to finally stamp himself as a big time, big game, big money pitcher. And he hasn't done it. And the Phillies, scrappy, won't go away. That lop-eared muck junkyard dog type that rallied from a 5-0 deficit. The Astros were hitting the ball. They were hitting the ball all over the place. They had 3 straight doubles to start. And then when they won game 2, you're thinking, okay, maybe some semblance has been restored. But the Phillies, backed by that crazy crowd at Citizens Bank Park, thrashed the Astros in game 3. Now, like I said, the show right now is being taped before game 4. But the thing is, if the Astros don't win game 4, they're in a mess of trouble. A mess of trouble. Even with home field advantage. They still have to win a game in Philly, then win 2 games back in Houston at Minute Maid Park. Do they have the chops to win it? I still think that they'll win in 6. But they're in a whole mess of trouble if they don't win game 4. And if they have to go back to Houston down 3-2, you're asking a lot from a team, though they have won the title before, but that's still asking a lot. There's trouble brewing, and that's for sure. The NBA looks to be in pretty solid labor health. And I mean, we've already had lockouts and strikes and everything for other sports. But relatively speaking, the last decade, the NBA has enjoyed bountiful labor health. But there could be trouble brewing on the horizon. Let me explain. The NBA has, as many people know, what they call a soft salary cap. Not like the NFL where they have a hard salary cap where you can only spend so much over so many players, and if you don't have the money, you can't get players on your team if you cannot exceed that cap. Whereas the NBA has a soft salary cap where you can exceed said cap, but it comes with a luxury tax penalty. Now, as it stands right now, 20 of the 30 NBA teams are below the said salary cap. Now, that salary cap is going to go up here in the coming years with added revenue and an incredibly big media deal with streaming deals and everything to come on the horizon in the next couple of years. The NBA they're having unprecedented financial prosperity. The teams are making money. I mean, there are franchises who are worth in the north of $1 billion. And you don't have where there was a situation, back in the late 70s, early 80s, where there were teams that were in serious jeopardy of folding, going under. I mean, I remember reading once about the Indiana Pacers having to have a telethon to get a number of season tickets to be able to keep the team afloat. Now, something like that isn't going to happen, especially with the media deals with ESPN and TNT raining literally billions of dollars onto the NBA, not to mention the streaming services, NBA TV and everything. And those are set to rise exponentially. The point of the topic here is this. The NBA owners now are seeking a hard salary cap, something like the NFL has. Now, you already have teams like the Clippers, the Warriors, and the Nets who have passed the salary cap limit and pay a very hefty luxury tax bill. Last year, they were responsible for 76% of the luxury tax that was paid out to the NBA. Now, luxury tax is supposed to be a penalty. You know, you spend too much, you're penalized. Usually, it's $1.25 for every dollar that you go over the cap, and then once you get past another limit, it's $1.50. Well, a team like the Warriors, when they wanted to sign players like Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins, they exceeded that salary cap, way past the salary cap. Now, we're not even talking about the money that was given to Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green. We're talking about players, decent players in their own right, but players who are, they got fringe money. But the Warriors have spent so far past the salary cap that they're getting a humongous tax bill. I mean, the luxury tax bill for the coming season is almost $500 million. Not $500,000, not $50 million, $483 million. That's not the salary that they're paying out. That's the luxury cap. That's a tax that they're paying out above that. And the NBA, the players they don't care. They're as long as they're getting paid. The owners and the Players Association are quietly coming to loggerheads because the NBA wants to rein in spending. They want to pull back. They want fiscal responsibility. No, what it is they want to prevent the owners from themselves. It's like this in Major League Baseball. It was like this before the season started. This is the reason why the Major League Baseball season is running a week late. I mean, they had to make up the games. They made up all the games, but they started 2 weeks late because of a lockout. Because the owners want the players to save them from themselves. And the NBA and everybody looks at the NFL. NFL, hard salary cap. They keep their spending on lock. But the NBA also has non-guaranteed contracts. The NBA, all their contracts are fully guaranteed. MLB, all their contracts are fully guaranteed. You have a type of financial system in the NBA where you can re-sign your own players. They call that the Bird exception, where you can go over the salary cap to sign your own players. Now, getting other players from other teams, it's a little bit much more of a financial gymnastics. That being said, the salary cap and the soft salary cap allows your smaller teams, your Milwaukees, your Indianas, your Charlottes, to be able to get players, develop them, and keep them. Unlike Major League Baseball, where you have teams like the Pirates, the Reds, the Rockies, you have some of these smaller market teams, the Brewers, that they get these players, good players, but after 6 years, they're off to free agency, and the team is either unable or sometimes unwilling to spend the money to keep them. That means teams like the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, and to a lesser extent, some teams like the Mets, the Cardinals, to be able to swoop in, take these players that have already been cultivated, and reap the benefits of their better years. Whereas you have smaller teams that have to spend a whole bunch of money to keep one player, like the Cincinnati Reds have done with Joey Votto, further hamstringing themselves. The NBA sees something like that, and they want to rein in their own spending. But you also have teams, like I said, smaller market teams that are able to keep their superstars. For example, Milwaukee with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Under other labor deals, he would have jumped at free agency and went off somewhere else. And the rumor mill was going really big. Giannis is gonna jump. He's gonna go to the Dubs. He's gonna go to the Heat. He stayed in Milwaukee. Signed an extension, stayed in Milwaukee. The flexibility of that soft salary cap made that possible. The NBA wants to, as they say, rein in their spending and make it so teams can't go wildly over the salary cap and just pay the luxury tax bill and keep on going. Owners like Steve Ballmer, who is crazy rich from Microsoft money, he doesn't care. He just writes out the check. But then you have more of the family-based operations in the NBA. They're not so willing to go over the salary cap that much and pay that big of a luxury tax bill. And you have to wonder how much of an impact that's going to make. Like I said, the players don't care. The players are they're just like, show me the money. They don't care if they're staying on the team they're going to play on, they've come up on, or move. Player movement has always been pretty much easy to do. If a player wants to move, if they're a restricted free agent, team can match the signing sheet and keep them. They can go over the salary cap to do so, like DeAndre Ayton did with the Suns. But you're going to have what the NBA Players Association fears is a cooling of salaries and a dampening of player movement. Something that quietly the NBA wants to keep players in their same markets, restrict their salaries, but still reap all the benefits of the money that's raining down on them. And there's a lot of money, and they can say, well, they can't cry poor because there's a lot of money that is coming down. Let's take a time out. Come back with an NHL team at a college rink. Is that possible? Could that happen? We'll look into it. Sports from the Hoodwood continues after this.
Is today your last day on Earth because you are being deployed to space tomorrow? Have you just turned 18 and you're ready to get out of your parents' house? Has your granddaughter gotten her boyfriend pregnant? Whatever your reason, you need us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com. We specialize in last-minute weddings. Active duty, military veterans and retired discounts are available. Visit us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's premier destination for no-nonsense commentary, thorough analysis, and logical insight on the world of sports. Now here's the man that Wikipedia and Google call for sports fact checks, your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood. I'm KJ Green, and let's shift gears to hockey. Now, I lived in Minnesota for a number of years, and I can tell you firsthand that state lives for hockey. Now, don't get me wrong. The Vikings, Twins, Timberwolves are all held in very high esteem in Minnesota. And the Minnesota Wild, as the pro team, has revived local interest in the pro version of the sport since they returned to St. Paul in 2000 after 8 years of dormant status. But the real love in Minnesota is the high school and the college games. And when I moved up there in the late 90s, I was surprised to see so many outdoor open air rinks where you would see basketball courts. Where I'm at in the Hoodwood in Minnesota, you saw hockey rinks, both indoor and outdoor. The love for the sport in that state is off the charts. Minnesota has no less than 5, count them, 5 D1 programs. Bemidji State, Minnesota Mankato, Minnesota Duluth, St. Cloud States, that's Snuffy's team, the Huskies, and the University of Minnesota, all of which made the NCAA hockey tournament in 2021. So the teams that are in Minnesota, they're not just teams, they're good teams. I've been to the venue at St. Cloud, the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center in St. Cloud. That could rival some pro venues for the intensity, the atmosphere. And The fans are knowledgeable, passionate, and very, very loyal. And I didn't know that there was a college program in Arizona. The Arizona State has a college program that they do, and they're the primary tenant at Mullet Arena in Tempe. I say prime tenant because the secondary tenant is the Arizona Coyotes. Now you say, wait. Arizona Coyotes, isn't that the NHL team? Yes. The Arizona Coyotes, who were playing at the smallest arena in the NHL, at the Gila River Arena in Glendale, which was 17,125, are now playing at Mullet Arena, capacity 5,000. Now you're saying, is this renovations on arena? No. Are you saying, are they trying to move? Are they trying to force a move? No, they want to stay in Arizona. Their plans for a $1.6 billion entertainment district in Tempe, not too far from Arizona State University, that the Coyotes have gotten initial approval to begin funding for the building of that arena. But that's not going to be for another 3 years. The Gila River Arena in Glendale, which were the Coyotes' former landlord, couldn't come to any kind of agreement for them to stay in that arena, so they gave them the boot, gave them the eviction notice. Say, hey, you ain't got to stay, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here. And the Coyotes basically were without a home. So they struck a deal with Arizona State University to play in Mullet Arena, capacity 5,000. Now, of course, this had to go through some wrangling with the NHL, and I think it's funny in a way, and it's sad that the team got booted out of their own arena. They can't play in the Footprint Center in downtown Phoenix, where the Suns play at, because the configurations for the arena aren't going to work, and the dates that they want are not suitable. This all happened within the last couple of months. They struck a deal with Arizona State, and they will be staying. This isn't just a one-season thing. They signed a lease agreement to play at this arena for the next 3 years. So that means the teams like the Rangers, the Red Wings, the Blackhawks, the Kings, the Mighty Ducks, even the neophytes like the Knights and the Seattle Kraken, still can't get over that name, Kraken, they will be playing as visitors in a very small arena, which is less than a third of the capacity of even the smallest arena in the NHL. But the Coyotes are trying to use this to their advantage with a rowdy student section, trying to cater to the Arizona State fans. And the fans that are there, very loyal, very loud, and according to the New York Rangers, who played there just recently, very intimidating. But I still can't get my mind around it. The Cincinnati Cyclones, which is close to the Hoodwood, play at Heritage Bank Arena in downtown Cincinnati. The capacity of that arena is a little over 14,000. That's 3 times the size of Mullet Arena. And you can bet your bottom dollar that on Friday night, they're going to outdraw that NHL team. And they are not AAA, but AA hockey. Did you think the Arizona Coyotes couldn't have come up with a better plan? Yes, they're going to be trying to build their own arena that they will be owning, but the lack of foresight is troubling. But the NHL went along with it. So for the next 3 years, if you ever see a game in Arizona, it's live from the Mullet Center, and no, it's not an illusion. The arena is that small. Let's take another timeout, come back with NFL Week 9 picks. Did okay last week. I'm going to see if we can get that number into double digits, knock on wood, and see if we can get some more picks, even though it's a smaller week, a little bit of a lighter week in lieu of the World Series. Sports from the Hoodwood comes back at you after this.
You are tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for opinion, analysis, and insight on the world of sports. Here now is the man banned from sports trivia contests in 38 states and 4 Canadian provinces, and not to mention Guam. Your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood. I am KJ Green, and let's take a look at the NFL Week 9 picks. And hey, it's 2 Thursdays in a row that I actually got it right. And a pick and upset sweep. Hey, I may actually have the hang of this NFL prognostication thing. But I'm not bragging that much. I'll try to keep it going this week with the picks. We are in the very middle of the season. We've done 8 weeks, got this 9th week, and then there are 8 weeks after. And I'm still not a big fan of the Thursday night games, though. I do like that the NFL is trying to schedule teams either later in the day or that for Sunday and Monday night for a little bit of a longer bye, a little bit longer turnaround in lieu of them having to play a short week. But this week is heavy with byes. There are only 13 games on the docket this week. I don't know if they were keeping it light for the World Series, which could be possibly playing a Game 7 on Sunday. But in any effect, the Browns, Cowboys, Broncos, Giants, Steelers, and 49ers are on their respective byes. So for your review, approval, and perusal are the Week 9 picks, with the ESPN bringing you the odds for comparison and entertainment purposes only. And as usual, I don't pay bookies, so if you bet the lines and lose, that's on you. Let's start out with the Thursday night game. There will be the 7-0 Eagles taking on the 1-5-1 Texans at NRG Stadium in Houston, 8:15 kickoff on Amazon Prime. The Eagles are 14-point favorites. Last week, the Eagles defeated the Steelers 35-13, while the Texans lost to the Titans 17-10. Now, the Eagles showed zero signs of rust off their own bye and pounded the Steelers mercilessly. Meanwhile, the Texans got run over, literally, by Derrick Henry and the Titans. Now, while the Eagles don't have a Thundercat type back in their backfield, they can still run the ball with effectiveness, and Jalen Hurts is a monster. The Houston Texans cannot get out of their own way, and this, even though it's in Houston, may very well be one of the ugliest games of the year. We're going to get it right off the top. The Eagles, Philadelphia, are the Hoodwood lock of the week. Let's turn to the Sunday game, shall we? This is a CBS doubleheader week. There's a regional early games, and then there's a national game. CBS has the 425 game all to itself. There aren't any other 425 games. There's only one other 405 game. Like I said, the light docket this week. Check your local listings for the games that are being played in your area, or you can consult the 506sports.com site. They have a very excellent coverage map for the games that are being played in your area. We'll start out for the games of Sunday, November 6th. And remember, all 10 games are Eastern Standard Time now. You should have fallen back with your clocks. Let's start out with the 4-3 Chargers taking on the 4-4 Falcons at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, 1 p.m. kickoff on Fox. The Chargers are 3-point favorites. Last week, the Chargers were on their bye, while the Falcons defeated the Panthers 37-34 in overtime. The rested Chargers head east, face the first place Falcons. That is not a typo. The Falcons are actually in first place with a 4-4 record in the NFC South. The Falcons have no problem scoring points. Their leaky defense is the problem. The Chargers shouldn't have any issue picking it apart. And it's well known how I don't like West Coast teams heading east to play games, especially at the 1 o'clock time slot. But I think that they should be able to grind out a win here. I'm calling it an upset because West Coast teams usually heading east are deadbeat, but not this time. The pick is the Los Angeles Chargers. That is the Hoodwood upset of the week. Next on the docket, we have the 5-3 Dolphins taking on the 3-5 Bears at Soldier Field in Chicago, 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Dolphins are 5-point favorites. Last week, the Dolphins defeated the Lions 31-27, while the Bears lost to the Cowboys 49-29. Now, the Dolphins' offense rallied smartly, twice in fact, to beat the Lions in Motown, while the Bears got poleaxed by the Pokes in Dallas. The Bears have a new offensive toy in the newly acquired Chase Claypool, but one has to wonder if the Bears offense is going to be wise enough to be able to use him in an effective way. Now, the Dolphins are getting their collective groove back under Tua Tagovailoa, and for beleaguered Bears defense, that is not a good thing, even at home. The pick here is Miami. Next on the docket, we have the 6-1 Vikings taking on the 4-4 Commanders at FedEx Field, Landover, Maryland. 1 p.m. kickoff on Fox. The Vikings are 3.5-point favorites. Last week, the Vikings defeated the Cardinals 34-26, while the Commanders defeated the Colts 17-16. Now, the Vikings continue to play that high wire, frightening act. At least it's not good for my constitution, to be honest. And they face a Commanders team that has quietly put together a 3-game winning streak to edge on the periphery of the playoff hunt. The Vikings offense has been putting up points at a healthy clip, to be sure, and their defense seems to play good enough to protect leads late. In a frank assessment, the Commanders have been winning with mirrors. I do not know how they've been doing it. Now, I was surprised to find out that they had won 3 in a row. I was like, what, 3? Oh, yeah, they have won 3 in a row. But I think even being at home, it just doesn't help them. And despite playing very capably under the decent Taylor Heineke, they aren't that good, to be perfectly honest. I get the feeling that the Vikings will again struggle to put a lesser team away, but they will win a slug-it-out type victory. The pick here is Minnesota. Next on the docket, we have the 2-5 Raiders taking on the 2-6 Jaguars at TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville. 1 o'clock kickoff on CBS. The Raiders are favored by 1.5 points. Last week, the Raiders lost to the Saints 24-0, while the Jaguars lost to the Broncos 21-17. The Raiders looked horrible last week after ringing up 38 points against, albeit a punchless Houston team. They didn't cross the 50-yard line at all in the game until 2 minutes were left in the game in New Orleans. They looked beyond anemic, getting shut out. Now they continue on east to face a road-weary Jags team who was coming back right off of a week in London, and they played very uneven, losing to the Broncos. They're pretty sad when the defense makes the Broncos offense looks competent. But this is another one of those I don't trust either team game. And I hate these type of games because you don't know which team's going to show up. Is it going to be the Raiders who will be able to ring up points like they did against the Texans, or the one that didn't have a clue against the Saints? Is it going to be the Jags team that stunned the Chargers, or is it going to be the one that looked like they really didn't even care and losses to the Colts and the Broncos? I know whoever I pick will make me look like a bumbling idiot. I think the Jags have more practice at it, though, so I'm going to pick the Raiders, who I think are more likely to bounce back. The pick here is Las Vegas. Next on the docket, we have the 3-5 Packers taking on the 1-6 Lions at Ford Field, Detroit. 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox. The Packers are 3.5-point favorites. Last week, Packers lost to the Bills 27-17, while the Lions lost to the Dolphins 31-27. The Packers are still searching for answers, and they're still searching for a competent wide receiver that Aaron Rodgers can trust. And they're not finding either. But when in doubt, bring the Lions out. The Lions found their offense, but their defense still is MIA. And they blew a pair of double-digit leads at home against Miami, and you could just hear and see Aaron Rodgers salivating, chomping at the bit to get after a Lions defense that gives up points the way they do. The Packers are bad, but they aren't sad sack yet like the Lions are, and even on the road, the Packers are better. The pick here is Green Bay. Next on the docket, we have the 2-6 Panthers taking on the 4-4 Bengals at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati. 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox. The Bengals are 7-point favorites. Last week, the Panthers lost to the Falcons 37-34, while the Bengals lost to the Browns 32-13. The Panthers had the game won against the Falcons on a late touchdown and a Hail Mary, and then blew it with a dumb penalty that ended up missing the extra point, forcing the game to overtime where the Falcons were able to escape. Meanwhile, the Bengals embarrassed themselves on prime time on the road against the Browns to my chagrin, and another prime time pratfall. Now the Panthers' anemic rush will be tonic to the Bengals offense, who got battered by the withering Browns pass rush, but I think that the Bengals will bounce back smartly. The pick is Cincinnati. Take timeout, come back with the rest of the NFL picks. Hoodwood continues to this.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest insight, thorough analysis, and unfiltered opinion on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's the man of the hour, After Hours, your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood, and we'll continue with Week 9 NFL picks with the 6-1 Bills taking on the 5-3 Jets at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Bills are 13-point favorites. Last week, the Bills defeated the Packers 27-17, while the Jets lost to the Patriots 22-17. The Bills looked almost methodical, almost bored and slapping around the Packers on Sunday night. Now they head downstate to face the Jets, who suddenly look very mortal against a very average Patriots squad. Now, I think the Bills' defense should confuse rookie quarterback Zach Wilson enough that they'll get enough picks and points to make the job that Josh Allen have very much easy. And with Josh Allen and that offense, boy, they can stack up points in a hurry. I think the Bills should be good to go. The pick here is Buffalo. Next on the docket, we have the 3-4-1 Colts taking on the 4-4 Patriots at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Patriots are 5.5-point favorites. Last week, the Colts lost to the Commanders 17-16, while the Patriots defeated the Jets 22-17. Now, the Colts fell apart late against a very beatable Washington squad, while the Pats do what they always do when they go head to Gotham, beat the Jets. Now, while the Pats have their problems, especially at quarterback, you can tell Bill Belichick still has no confidence in Mac Jones. They still have enough on the ball to beat the Colts, who are still trying to find their way under Sam Ehlinger. The pick here is New England. Turning to the late games, easy for me to say, we have the 5-3 Seahawks taking on the 3-5 Cardinals at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. 4:05 kickoff on Fox. The Cardinals are 2-point favorites. Last week, the Seahawks defeated the Giants 27-13, while the Cardinals lost to the Vikings 34-26. Now, the Seahawks won with surprising ease over the G-men. Now head to the desert to face the Cardinals, who are the definition of uneven. They can't win at home. Kyler Murray is still getting used to having a beast wide receiver number one like DeAndre Hopkins. Meanwhile, the Seahawks just keep winning. Not necessarily with mirrors, but no one expected the season that Geno Smith has had, and Kenneth Walker is looking more and more like a top-flight Rookie of the Year candidate. I think the Seahawks pound the ball at the Cards' weak run defense, and that carries the day. The pick is Seattle. Next on the docket, we have the 3-4 Rams taking on the 3-5 Buccaneers at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. 4:25 kickoff on CBS. I know these are NFC teams, but CBS has this game. The Buccaneers are 3-point favorites. Last week, the Rams lost to the 49ers 31-14, while the Bucs lost to the Ravens 27-22. This is a rematch of last year's thrilling divisional playoff game that went overtime, but both teams are shadows of their once dominant selves and are seeking a season-saving win. The Rams are trying to stay afloat in the uber tough NFC West, and while the NFC South isn't as dominant as its logjam Bucks are trying to stave off challenges from the Falcons and Saints to stay on top of that division. Both Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady have seen better days, and both defenses are looking pretty shabby. But to be perfectly honest, as shady and suspect as Bucks have played, I think the Rams have played worse, and I'll take the lesser of two evils. The pick is Tampa Bay. Snuffy likes the Sunday night game. So do I. It's 5-2 Titans against the 5-2 Chiefs. GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. 8:20 kickoff on NBC. The Chiefs are 12.5-point favorites. I had to double check that, but that's right. The Chiefs are 12.5-point favorites. Last week, the Titans defeated the Texans 17-10 while the Chiefs were on their bye. Now, this game is fascinating. The Titans are quietly on the top of the AFC South, while the Chiefs have done the heavy work to stay on top of the AFC West. The Titans are still going to go as far as Derrick Henry takes them, and against lesser opponents like, say, the Houston Texans, that should be enough. The Titans can grind their way to wins, but against a high-powered team like the Chiefs, that's asking a little too much. That's a totally different matter. The pick here is Kansas City. Finally, we have on the Monday night game, the 5-3 Ravens taking on the 3-5 Saints at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. 8:15 kickoff on ESPN. The Ravens are 3-point favorites. Last week, the Ravens defeated the Buccaneers 27-22, while the Saints shut out the Raiders 24-0. Now, the Saints backed up Alvin Kamara's boast that they were going to kick the Raiders' ass. They did so, shutting them out, keeping them from beyond the 50-yard line till very late in the game. But while their defense held the Raiders to 183 yards, that's going to be a little bit of a taller order facing a more competent offense like the Ravens. A team that doesn't force turnovers is looking like dead meat to the Ravens, who slugged their way to an ugly but effective win last Thursday. While the Saints played better the week previous, the Ravens are a lot more dynamic than the Raiders. The pick is Baltimore, and there you have it. Last week I was 9-5 with the lock and upset correct. Overall, I'm 70, 51-1, and 5-3 on both the locks and upsets. Let's take our final timeout, come back with the Hoodwood Hot 5, Phat, Dap, and Head Slap, as well as the final word from the Woods. Sports from the Hoodwood heads down the home stretch after this.
Is today your last day on Earth because you are being deployed to space tomorrow? Have you just turned 18 and you're ready to get out of your parents' house? Has your granddaughter gotten her boyfriend pregnant? Whatever your reason, you need us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com. We specialize in last-minute weddings. Active duty, military veterans and retired discounts are available. Visit us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com.
You're tuned into Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for no-nonsense commentary, insight, and opinions on the world of sports. Here now live in living color, black by popular demand, your host, KJ Green.
Rounding third and headed for home here in the Hoodwood. Let's finish up strong with the Hoodwood Hot 5, Phat, Dap, and Head Slap, and the final word from the wood. Our Hoodwood Hot 5, unlike the CFP, has 5 teams that we think are the best in the nation. Now, the AP may say something, ESPN might say something, but it's the Hoodwood Hot 5 that really matters. So, let's go from 5 to 1. And number 5, we have the Clemson Tigers, who were off last week. They are still 8-0. They face Notre Dame in what the CFP is praying is an ambush waiting to happen in South Bend. Now, Notre Dame, of course, being a decent team, but they're not nationally ranked. And if Clemson should fall in South Bend, give CFP just as good an excuse to get rid of them. No matter that's not only their first loss, but still, that would be a reason for them. So what? They may be the ACC champions again. So what? It's a reason to get rid of them. And I still believe the CFP desires 2 of the 4 teams to be in the CFP from the Southeastern Conference. At number 4, we have Michigan. 29-7 winners over Michigan State, which is marred by the ugly brawl at the end of that game, which we'll detail later in Phat, Dap, and Head Slap. But they're ranked 4th right now. They're 8-0. Their next game is at Rutgers in New Jersey. Right now, their schedule favors them. And I said that it was an easy schedule all the way down the stretch. Playing Rutgers, no big deal. Playing Nebraska, no big deal. But ahead of that Ohio State game, there's Illinois waiting in the weeds. What the CFP, I'm pretty sure, is hoping is that Michigan loses to Illinois and then trips up Ohio State, thereby eliminating them both. So that a one-loss Alabama now has an excuse to get back into the picture. If all these teams are undefeated, you can't really put or justify a one-loss team being in the mix. But if Michigan and Ohio State both eliminate each other, then they would say all things considered equal, they would say, oh, Alabama's played the tougher schedule. I still think it's a load of bull, but that's the way the CFP plays. Right now with 4 teams, you really can't justify a one-loss team with a bunch of undefeated teams still in it. Moving on, our number 3 team is Georgia. They beat Florida 42-20 in Jacksonville and now face number 1 Tennessee. Wow. Tennessee, number 1. Georgia, number 3. As a high-stakes showdown for the SEC East. The winner still has the inside track to Atlanta. The loser, that might be all she wrote. Because I cannot see justifying a team that did not win its division and did not play in its conference championship game, passing that all by and getting to the college football playoff. I don't think that's right. Our number 2 team is Tennessee. The aforementioned Vols beat UK, beat them badly, 44-6. Love them black and orange uniforms. Those were sharp. Playing at Neyland Stadium at night, the place was rocking. Kentucky had no chance. Tennessee blew them out, and now they didn't look past them to Georgia and now face the undefeated Bulldogs in Sanford Stadium this coming Saturday. This basically is an elimination game. The winner, like I said, moves one step closer to Atlanta. The loser is pretty much done. Whoever loses this game will be out of the Hoodwood Hot 5. And of course, our number 1 team is Ohio State. They struggle with Penn State down the stretch and were behind 21-16 in the 4th quarter. But with 9 minutes to play, the Buckeyes woke up and scored 28 points. Now, granted, some of it was on a pick 6, but still, Ohio State came up aces when they needed to, blowing out the Nittany Lions in Happy Valley. The next game is at Northwestern. That's the only game that they play in the Central Time Zone in their entire schedule. Ohio State may have pretty much a cakewalk till they play Michigan, but still, they're undefeated, and until they're beaten, they will remain the number 1 team in the Hoodwood Hot 5. That's my Hot 5. What's yours? Now our Fat Dap head slap of the week. Our Fat Dap goes to University of Michigan head football coach Jim Harbaugh, who was very vocal and adamant about seeking not retaliation, but some sort of justice for his assaulted players. Now, at the end of, I mentioned before that Michigan beat Michigan State 29-7 in Ann Arbor. And at the end of the game, as the players were leaving the field, there was a brawl in the tunnel. And I won't say it was a brawl. It was a number of Michigan State players assaulting one Michigan player. This wasn't your usual pushing and shoving and finger pointing and noise talking. This was assault. There were helmets being swung. There were kicks. There were punches. And to Michigan State's credit, and their head coach Mel Tucker, who basically announced that defensive ends Jacoby Windman, Brandon Wright, and cornerbacks Justin White and Malcolm Jones have been suspended indefinitely. And previously, Michigan State has suspended linebackers Tank Brown, safety Angelo Gross, and defensive end Zion Young and cornerback Kyrie Crump for their involvement. The way that Michigan handled this, calling for swift punishment of these players for their actions, and especially the way Jim Harbaugh was very vocal in what happened. Like I said, this wasn't your ordinary pushing and shoving and finger pointing. Somebody could have really gotten hurt. You lose the game, you lose the game. Be upset, be mad. Fighting with the other players because you lost just makes you look stupid. It makes you look like a sore loser. And Michigan State, after getting their butts handed to them, looked that very much the part. Our head slap of the week goes to Eric Burton. Now, I will admit, I had never heard of this singer, lead singer of the group called the Black Pumas, but he messed up the national anthem before Game 1 of the World Series badly. The lyrics he butchered. Now, I've sung the national anthem, not by myself. I'm not that good of a singer. I got cut from the choir in the 4th grade and in college. But I was part of the University of Cincinnati men's and women's choir, and we sung the national anthem before a Reds game and before a UC football game. That's a tough song to sing. I'm able to hide my somewhat semi-singing voice in the middle of a group. But I know the words. You know, the "Oh say can you see" and everything, but instead of saying "Hail at the twilight's last gleaming," he said "Twilight's last streaming." Wait a minute, what? And then he continued correctly with "Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight," but then instead of "Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming," he backtracked again to "What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last streaming" again, before saying "gleaming" and then finishing the song uneventful. Learn the words, man. Head slap to Eric Burton for not at least having a song sheet to remember the words. And now, without much further ado, let's go to the final word from the wood. I'm not one to repeat final word topics, but this is a subject that needs to be repeated. I don't get Kyrie Irving. You know, I know he's trying to come off as this counterculture thinker, and he's been seen burning sage at opposing arenas to ward off bad spirits and espousing this free think mentality and promoting ideas and topics that could be considered radical, among other things. He now faces a backlash at a statement that he made recently, this time promoting an anti-Semitic film and book on his social media accounts. Now, the film, that is entitled Hebrews to Negroes, Wake Up Black America, is a 2018 film based on a 2015 book of the same name, and is based on the theory that black people are the real descendants of ancient Israelites. Now, that isn't the part that's causing trouble. It's the championing of the claims that European Jews wield some sort of outsized control over society. The thing is that Irving continues to double and triple down vociferously defending his posts. That's a bit amusing to me since he deleted his initial tweets, yet defended the statements imposed all the same. Now, Brooklyn Nets owner Joe Tsai and the NBA have both released individual statements condemning Irving's promotion of the material and have strongly advised him to repudiate his advocacy of the same. Now, on this point, Irving has been steadfast in his defense of his advocation, saying, and I quote here, "Nah, this is what's here. It's on a public platform. Did I do anything illegal? Did I hurt anybody? Did I harm anybody? Am I going out and saying that I hate one specific group of people? So out of all the judgment that people got for me posting without talking to me, and then I respect what Joe Tsai said, but there has a lot to do with not ego or pride of how proud I am to be of African heritage, but also to be living as a free black man here in America, knowing the historical complexities for me to get here," end quote. Now, I'm not one to have issues with one's theories, movie watching or book reading. Do what you want, watch what you want, read what you want. It's still a free country, but keep it to yourself. It's when you start promoting such movies on social media, when you start espousing these goofy conspiracy theories, many, if not all, which are baseless, that's when I take umbrage. Irving has this exaggerated sense of self. He wants to be this free thinker, and he puts out these statements, promotes these ideas, but gets antsy when someone calls him on the things that are either blatantly wrong or so out of touch that instead of looking like a learned brother, he comes off looking unknowing or just downright ignorant. He made statements that he's not a supporter of conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, despite posting a video of the disgraced media figure referring to secret societies here in America. Now, I've detailed the inane comments that Irving has made over the years. They've been documented in this space numerous times, and I won't go into detail about them again. This is just exacerbating the point I've made. Irving seems to want to be canceled out, cry victim, and make this big play to eat so he can either walk away from the Nets or basketball altogether. Now, while Irving is undoubtedly a generational talent, if he left, he would be missed briefly but not mourned. I think the basketball populace has grown increasingly tired of his act, and like Kanye West, I refuse to call that man Ye, he is getting pushed aside to the point where he is highly marginalized and ignored. I'm not advocating punishing dissenting speech, not one bit. But to advocate a racist trope is just wrong, and the NBA will be fully in its power and very correct to punish Irving for his stance and his initial refusal to repudiate his words. Now, as this show was being taped, it was announced that Irving and the Brooklyn Nets each donated $500,000, quote, to causes and organizations that work to eradicate hate and intolerance in our communities. Now, they issued a joint statement with the Anti-Defamation League earlier on Wednesday when they might tape this show. While Irving made a statement as part of the joint announcement with the Anti-Defamation League, as part of Wednesday's joint statement, Irving said, and I quote again, he opposes all forms of hatred and oppression and stands strong with communities that are marginalized and impacted every day, end quote. So what is Kyrie Irving's endgame? What is the purpose of all of this? If Irving was trying to foster discussion on racism and its early roots, he went about it in the worst possible way. I highly encourage folks to read for themselves, study up, make an informed decision, foster discussion for the greater good. To advocate a patently racist and highly discredited work that out for review and consumption is not the way to go. Especially given the messy situation that Kanye West has got himself into in the past week, that should serve as a cautionary tale. Look, no one is saying that the dude has to shut up. There are some really uncomfortable conversations that need to be had. But there's a way to do these things. There's a way to do and have these sort of discussions. Promoting a book and movie that is espousing wild theories and anti-Semitic tropes is not the way to do it. And then doubling down on these things lessen the kind of cultural impact that he wants to have. And it makes him look more like an Uncle Ruckus than an Uncle Drew. And while that is the end of the commentary, I do have one final statement. Vote. Election day is November 7th, and it is your right and duty as an American. And that is the final word from the Wood. And with the music coming up in the background, that means your time here in the Hoodwood is just about done. And I thank you so much again for your visit this week. Now, the show email is kjgreen@sportsfromthehoodwood.com. Please send me an email regarding show topics, questions, comments, and both praise and criticism. I welcome your correspondence, and we'll try to get back to you as quickly as I can. Now, the show website is now sportsfromthehoodwood.com. It has a back catalog of the show in both audio and video form, and I'm starting to populate it with some other stuff and reviews and crazy stuff that I found along the web. Take a look-see and tell me what you think. You can also catch the podcast on video form on YouTube. The link to the podcast will also be provided on Facebook and Twitter at Black Band Productions and Enterprises. The audio version is on Spotify, Amazon Music, Stitcher, iMusic, and other fine podcast platforms and providers. If the Hoodwood is not on your favorite, drop me a line and I'll see what I can do to get it provided there. Special thanks to Rage Pictures for providing production to the show. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, from the Hoodwood. Until next time, fellow sports fans, I'm KJ Green, 30.
Sports from the Hoodwood
Is a Black Bandit Productions and Enterprises presentation.
of a 551 Audio and Films production.